During World War II, mobile flak guarded convoys and bridges. Today, we will tour each major nation's anti-aircraft vehicles. Let's start with Germany first. SDKFZ 10/4 carried a single 20mm gun for convoy defense. Fast and light, it redeployed quickly, but the open crew position meant it survived by moving. SDK Caves 6/2 mounted a 37mm gun on a larger half-track for longer reach. It was useful against low aircraft and soft ground targets, yet it still fought in the open. SDK-FZ 7/1 used 4 20mm barrels to throw a close-range storm of fire. You would spot it around columns and crossings, and crews loved how quickly it could react. SDKF's 7/2 traded volume for harder 37mm hits. It handled tougher targets better, but the crew stayed exposed and had to watch for strafing and shrapnel. SDK-SHEZ 251/17 put a 20mm gun on an armored half-track to escort mechanized infantry. It moved where trucks bogged down, though the mount and crew were still vulnerable. Flak Panzer I was a Panzer I with a 20mm gun in an open top mount. Thin armor and a tiny platform limited it, but it added tracked AA cover early. Flak Panzer 38T used the 38T chassis with a 20mm gun for escort duty. Low and handy, it was built late and in limited numbers, with little overhead protection. Mobilwagen carried a 37mm gun on a Panzer IV with folding plates around the crew. It delivered heavier firepower, but setup and exposure were constant trade-offs. Wirbelwind mounted quad 20mm guns in a turret, giving fast traverse and brutal close-range fire. It was effective against low flyers and also dangerous to ground targets. Ostwind used a turreted 37mm gun to hit harder at range. Kugelblitz aimed for an enclosed turret with twin 30mm guns, but arrived too late to matter widely. Germany ran the full menu, from light half-tracks to turreted flak tanks. Next, the American approach is scale. M13 MGMC carried twin .50 caliber guns on a half-track for short-range air defense. It was simple and common, best when aircraft came low and close. M14 GMC was the twin .50 idea on the M5 family, built mainly for Allies. It guarded depots, convoys, and airfields, and crews liked the familiar layout. M16 MGMC used the quad .50 turret, throwing a thick stream of fire into low aircraft. The same volume also made it nasty against trucks, soft vehicles, and exposed infantry. M15 combined a 37mm cannon with machine guns for better reach. It was heavier and more complex to run, but it could threaten aircraft beyond pure machine gun range. M17 MGMC was the export quad .50 half-track that spread across Allied armies. It protected supply lines and columns, and it became a quick answer to sudden low-level attacks. M19 MGMC mounted twin 40mm Bofors on a light-tracked chassis, arriving late. It gave a stronger punch against tougher aircraft and stayed useful in ground support. The M45 quad mount on trucks guarded bridges, depots, and road hubs with quad .50 fire. Fast to move, easy to emplace, it stayed vulnerable because the carrier was a truck. In close fighting, crews sometimes used AA mounts to sweep hedgerows and streets. It was not the job on paper, but it helped break the sudden resistance fast. Moving on, the Soviet answer mixed Lend-Lease firepower with late war tracked protection. ZSU-37 placed a 37mm gun on a light tracked chassis to guard moving armor. Arriving late, it still showed the push for proper escort flak on the march. The Lend-Lease M17 gave Soviet columns quad .50 fire for low-level threats. Reliable and quick to set, it also hammered soft ground targets when needed. Soviet units often mounted machine guns and light cannon on trucks and tractors. It was rough, but it put barrels in the air across huge fronts. Air attacks often hit road jams, crossings, and supply routes. Mobile AA was about keeping units moving through danger zones, not chasing perfect kills. If you enjoy these hardware tours, subscribe for more World War II vehicles, organized by role and nation, every week. Britain comes next with conversions and purpose-built AA tanks shaped by desert columns and the push into Europe. Light Tank A. A Mark I used multiple machine guns on a small chassis as an early escort idea. Limited range and power held it back, but the concept was clear. Crusader AA Mark I adapted the fast Crusader hull for mobile air defense. It was meant to keep pace with armor, though changing air conditions reduced its use. Crusader AA Mark II carried twin 20mm guns for a real jump in practical fire. It could engage low aircraft and also threaten light ground targets. Crusader AA Mark III refined the twin 20mm setup for quicker reaction. It was designed for escort duty during advances, pauses, and crossings. Centaur A. A Mark I paired a Centaur hull with a turret carrying twin 20mm Polston guns. Some were prepared for Normandy, then held back as the air threat faded. Centaur AA Mark II continued the same use what exists approach with twin 20mm guns. It was a practical answer built from available parts. Skink was a Canadian quad 20mm AA tank concept with heavy close-range firepower. It arrived late, so its guns were often aimed at ground targets instead. With Allied air power rising, many late-war AA vehicles spent more time firing at ground targets in practice. Next on the list is Italy, where industry limits and shifting fronts meant AA often rode on trucks. Semovente M15/40, Due Antiaereo, late prototype AA tank. This was a late attempt to put anti-aircraft fire on an Italian tank chassis. Too few appeared to influence the war, but the need was obvious. Italy explored quad 20mm mounts for mobile air defense. The idea promised dense fire, yet production limits kept it rare. The 90/53 gun on trucks could threaten aircraft and armor at range. Protection was thin, and stability was tricky, so crews depended on good positions. Breda 20mm guns on trucks served as flexible point defense for roads and depots. They were easy to move, but crews were exposed to attack. In Italy, equipment changed hands and roles as the front shifted. Whatever could shoot upward might get pressed into AA duty. Finally, Japan's AA vehicles were fewer, often improvised and usually facing stronger air power. Japan mounted the Type 98 20mm gun on trucks like the Type 94 for mobile defense. It guarded columns and junctions, relying on concealment because protection was minimal. A half-track carrier gave the same light gun better traction on poor roads. Mobility improved, but the open position still left crews exposed. Type 98. Tassi was a tracked AA project with a 20mm gun, built in very small numbers. It shows the desire for armored escort flak, even if it stayed rare. Other armored AA concepts stayed at the prototype level, with limited impact. Late war shortages meant Japan could not scale these ideas. Across every front, mobile flak mattered when aircraft appeared fast overhead, and the road was the battlefield. From quad .50 half-tracks to late flak panzers, AA vehicles shielded armies on the move. Which one stands out most? Subscribe.